So back in October of 2016, there was a petition going on that was getting a huge amount of traction. From what I last time checked, it was over 600,000 signatures, I believe. I could be wrong on that, but with this whole talk about, oh, we want this to happen, oh, we want to see this happen soon enough, and I was like, okay, that actually has a lot of potential. This is a petition to start a Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic series and or movies. Now, let me word out what the petition says. It's no surprise to anyone that the Star Wars franchise has experienced a massive resurgence lately, with The Force Awakens released last year and, at the time, this year with the upcoming Rogue One, a Star Wars story. However, it's about time that the stories from over 3,000 years before the Battle of Yavin be told to both old and new fans of the franchise. The Knights of the Old Republic series of games, as well as the MMORPG Star Wars The Old Republic, serves as the main vehicles to tell stories of characters such as Darth Revan, Darth Malak, Bastila Shan, Darth Trayana, also known as Kreia, Mitria Surik, the Exile, Darth Malix, Satele Shan, and the list goes on. The popularity of this era in Star Wars history is felt throughout the fanbase, and I would feel it would do a massive disservice if these stories weren't told, or in this case, retold. And interestingly, this petition called for it to be a Netflix series, saying this: why Netflix was chosen was because of its wealth of great content they have produced over the years, such as Nachos, Narcos, House of Cards, and especially everything that Marvel has done and is still currently working on, such as Jessica Jones, the Daredevil series, Luke Cage, The Punisher, which is upcoming, and Iron Fist, which is also upcoming, and the upcoming Defenders that comes out afterwards. So they say this: not only that, but Netflix can serve as a platform to tell these stories as they were meant to be portrayed: dark, foreboding, and a touch of the mature side. This can also give fans a healthy dose of Star Wars while we're waiting on the next movie or the new season of Star Wars Rebels. man, I really will talk about the third season of Rebels when it's over. Because, boy, was I pissed off for most parts. But I'll get to that when I get to that, so this isn't about Rebels or the New Hope era. The Old Republic is a pivotal point in the Star Wars timeline because that's where everything changed. From the Jedi Civil War, the fall of Revan, the First Jedi Purge, and omnipresent darkness that only watched chaos from afar, but also kickstarted the downfall. Our fanbase would love to see this on Netflix, and I feel that you would enjoy creating and adapting these stories as much as we would enjoy watching them. So that was the petition that was on that's on change.org. Now I have there's a lot of potential to be told about this series of stuff. This is over 300 years of time of history that could be talked about between the Jedi Civil War and the fall of Revan, and there's also the Mandalorian War. So you have close to 400 years of content ready to be told. And then there's also potential for the return of favorite characters that people love, like Revan, the Exile, Nihilus, Darth Sion, Kreia. I would love to see them. And the part where they said that they would do it on Netflix, that they hope they would do it on Netflix, that actually would be the perfect place to do it. Now, why is it perfect? Because Netflix doesn't have the restrictions of the television networks. They could do whatever they want. They could go as far as they want. They could go dark. They can go aggressive. They could go in any way they can. If you had Hollywood and it was a rated R movie, then while that would be badass, Disney marketing will not allow that. And then there's the TV directions, and they'll say, oh no, we can't do that on television because it's too suggestive and it will poison the youth of America. So Netflix would be the perfect place to showcase all of this. You've seen House of Cards, and you see how that has turned out so far. The Marvel series, how it's all building up to the Defenders, and then afterwards building up more seasons. And then there's also the Punisher in the works, and Iron Fist. So I thought, yeah, Netflix would be a great home for that. But I also wanted to discuss, is it going to be potential movies as well? How they said that if they were to do Marvel movies of the 4 series that they're doing, now 6, if you add in the Punisher and Defenders, how they said that these could turn into movies, then I feel like Okay, that might be a little problematic. Whereas Marvel, they have their contract signed to do this, but Star Wars is a whole different beast. Like, how would they do this? Like, okay, here's how I feel like they should do like what George Lucas did with the prequel saga, where he made movies and then had a Clone Wars series. But this time we have movies focusing on Revan, and then later down the road we could talk about the Exile. But there also would be concerns like, would they want to make the games of Knights of the Old Republic remastered, this time with different angles, so they don't have to put in more expanded universe material, since Disney's already kind of choking the fossil right now with that. The fossil fuel of that, but I'll get to that in a moment. But yeah, there's like this whole medium issue. Like, would people want to play the games? Would people want to watch the show? Would they want to watch the movie? Like, they have to do that, and then there's also the potential books and whatnot. And considering the reason why I think Disney would probably do this project is for several reasons. One, it's the expanded universe of Star Wars Legends that everybody loves more than the new Disney canon, which currently sucks, in my opinion. I could be wrong. Like, to me, it feels like they haven't done anything that makes you feel like this was worth it. Like, this whole reboot was worth it. Like, Rogue One, that was a good step. Force Awakens felt like it was playing safe. I'm hoping Episode 8 turns out a lot different and they take more chances. And Rogue One, killing off the entire main cast, like, that was unexpected because you would think, oh, whereas you knew what would happen in the prequel trilogy, you didn't know if these characters would survive or go on different missions afterwards. So, and while, yeah, it is a bummer that we know for a fact that it would take place 3,000 years in the past, and therefore we know all these characters, oh yeah, they're all going to die eventually, either by war or by old age or some other tragedy. But ultimately, I wouldn't complain about that. Like, even when I was watching the Clone Wars, I had seen the movie, so yeah, I knew this character's gonna live, this character's gonna die, I know this character's fate, and then there's all the expanded universe because George Lucas was retconning everything, but also trying to work it in to make it work. So you knew what would happen to those characters already. So, anyways, I felt like, yeah, there might be some problems here. So, like, but even then, I felt tension. Like, I want these characters to survive, even though I know they're gonna die. And yet, it was so fun just to see the entire ride. Like, Ahsoka was ambiguous. Like, we didn't know what would happen to Ahsoka until the series was canceled, unfortunately. And now people still demand the Clone Wars be resurrected. And Disney mocked us in one episode. I'll talk about that in the season 3 video. Oh god. Man, I hate that episode. So, yeah. This petition to get this to take the Old Republic series back into the canon, since Star Wars The Old Republic's the last Legends project in the works with their expansion packs, but it could be ending eventually, but it'll end eventually, and then all the expanded universe will be therefore gone afterwards. So afterwards, it felt like, but do they want to play the games? Like, okay, here's what I think they could do. Okay, like, from what we've seen from Knights of the Old Republic 1, Knights of the Old Republic 2, and Star Wars The Old Republic, they could remaster the two games and then keep in the Old Republic MMO. They just have to change some things because there were some expanded universe material that took place after the Return of the Jedi that would most likely be retconned or just taken out completely. Like certain scenes, like I believe there was one where Cat Skywalker showed up in a vision to somebody 3,000 years in the past in a Knights of the Old Republic comic, and along with Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker standing in front of a bunch of Red Ghoul and a burning city or a bunch of other aliens. So they would have to change that up or not do it at all. So, or they could like hint Kylo Ren in the future what would happen after the Death Star. So they could do that. Though of course that might make me question things about why did they not record their information in holocron. So yeah. But anyways, now if they were to do movies after Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2, like they could focus on the Great Galactic War, and then afterwards they do the Cold War and the Old Republic era. Now, they could do a trilogy on the Great Galactic War and talk about how that happened, because really we get mostly mentions of it, and then we get books talking about that take place during it with certain characters or after the war. So I feel like they could work around that. But moving on. Now, a Netflix series, well, I wouldn't disagree with that. I feel like that would be the best place to do the show. Um, would it be live action or CGI anime like the Clone Wars and Rebels series? Honestly, if they were to do movies and they'll most likely be live actioned, I say they should go with a CGI show. Mostly because they can change the voice, they can get voice actors that can make them sound like the characters we've come to know and love, but also keep the familiarity. And because if they did a live action movie and a live action show and they wanted to make Revan and whatnot, that would cause fans to like, where's the guy who plays Revan? Like, that's not the guy who plays Revan. That just confuses people and angers them. Like, oh, you can't afford to get this guy for a TV show? Okay. So yeah, I feel like a CGI show would be the best bet if they were to make movies out of this. Now, they could also make a Netflix series or movies based on the Knights of the Old Republic games, but I think fans would, since they want a singular continuity going on, so I get the feeling they'll probably do that. And plus, Spyware's working on a Star Wars game from when I last time heard from them, when I looked it up. So they could be trying to resurrect the old franchise. So that will be interesting to see. And also, some group of fans are trying to remaster Knights of the Old Republic and add some new content in. But this is a full-fledged single game, not a full-fledged Bioware licensed, EA licensed, Disney licensed product. This is a fan passion project. So it'd be interesting what that happens to that, because I haven't heard from it since it kind of just went off the grid. And people will say, well, in the new canon, it says it's been 1,000 years only. Well, yeah, but then they could just bring back the Rusan Reformation and just establish a BC AD kind of system, like the before Rusan Reformation, and then after Rusan Reformation, and then they could do the Yavin timeline, the time system they did. So they could do that again with the whole Treaty of Coruscant. Then they go to the Rusan Reformation, and then they go to the Battle of Yavin afterwards. So I feel like there's a lot of potential here. I would love to see Revan. Like, when the Force Awakens was first announced, but before that, no one knew what the movie was. All they saw was this hooded figure running through the forest and igniting a lightsaber. And then all of a sudden, everyone just said, "Oh, that's Revan! Oh my god, they're making Revan! Oh my god, this is awesome!" Like, I saw people left and right say it's Revan. They're gonna bring Revan into the fold, and I'm like, but okay, two things. One, that was 3,000 years ago. Like, I know they came up with a reason for him to show up 300 years later after his capture, and it made sense to me at least. But could they really jump the shark and somehow bring him back again after what happened? And then Disney destroy the entire expanded universe just to make room for this, and boy, did that not work out. So, yeah, it wasn't Revan, it was Kylo Ren, Jason Solo, as I like to call him, because that's who he was, not Ben Solo. Seriously, why not just keep the name Jason Solo instead of just twisting it and say it's our idea? And the reason why I think Disney and Lucasfilms would probably go forward with this massive project is because for several reasons. One, it's a hot property that everybody loves. 2, it makes money for them. 3, EA still making hot money out of this from the Old Republic MMO. 4, let's see, did I mention this is the expanding universe which fans still love and miss? So to see it back into the Disney canon fold under Netflix's direction, yeah, I'm pretty sure people would pay for that. So, along with that, but I would be curious who would play these characters. Like, Nihilist, you could just get any big man and then any strong man to dress up as him and then just record audio with that dead voice of Sith language if they ever made a live action movie. It would be awesome. And I would also there would be some things I would also want to see that were never shown in the old EU when it came to these characters. Like we never got I don't recall a full-fledged chronological history of the Mandalorian Wars. They could do a prequel series for that. The Jedi Civil War could be a trilogy of movies. The Exile story could be a trilogy. Then they could do the Revan storyline after Knights of the Old Republic 1 and focus on him and Bastila, how they cope with their relationship in the new post-Jedi Civil War era. Like, all this has potential. Like, it'd be hard to decipher what would be perfect for this, what would be perfect for that, but I would love to see a Mandalorian War series. Like, they've also been hinting at this series, at these timelines return. Like, in a recent Rebels episode, The Trials of the Darksaber, they mention a war that broke out between the Jedi and the Mandalorians. So, and then by extension, that most likely involves the Republic. So they hint that the Mandalorian Wars is coming back, and then they show this Mandalorian character named Tar Vizsla, and he looks suspiciously too much like Revan. Like, they could retcon the whole Revan got the mask from a Mandalorian female. Instead, Tar Vizsla was killed in the Mandalorian Wars when he tried to stop it, and Revan swore after his death that he would fight the Mandalorians, and that would fuel him to form the Revan group and rebel against the Jedi Order. Like, that would be interesting. And then there also, though of course they did say that took place 1,000 years ago, so well they could have been wrong. The date could have been broken, like, but yeah. And then there's like the whole siege of they bring back Malachor to an extent, except it's a ruined planet of Jedi and Sith. But when you look at it, it feels like, yeah, that looks kind of like Malachor from Knights of the Old Republic 2. It's just a dead world. So they could try and incorporate the Great Galactic War and put it on Malachor, where it could have been the second to final battle that made the Sith want to establish that treaty, and then they could do the Siege of Coruscant. Like, I'm just trying to come up with ideas here because this is just fun. So they could do that. I'm just trying to map out some potential ideas here if Disney ever saw this video. Or Dave Filoni, since he's more of a fan of the expanded universe than the corporate heads are. So, let's see what else they could do. They could go ahead and, let's see, I said two trilogies of the Exile and Revan story. Then they could do a prequel series of the Mandalorian Wars. Then they could do a series of the Great Galactic War. But then people might say they want to see a game out of the two Exile and Revan stories. So there could be some conflict with that. It's just, all this has potential. Like, that's what I'm going to say. All this has great potential with this series. And potential movies. Now, this petition is still going, I believe. Like, I'm just hoping for this to happen because, my God, I am a huge fan of this specific timeline. Like, from the old EU, I loved how these characters, like, you want these characters to succeed, and you know they're gonna succeed, but you know, at the same time, it's gonna be all for naught thousands of years later, but you still say, yeah, they did it! Like, when I talked to my friend Solaris about this, and I asked him, "Who do you think was the best character, Revan or Commander Shepard?" And he couldn't answer that. Like, that was hilarious to ask. Like, I knew he would be conflicted about this, but I knew at the same time it's a tough question to ask. Like, is Revan the great character that Byron made, or is it Commander Shepard? Because they're both similar how they wanted to defy destiny and just to break the rules of the established system and try to go their own way. Whereas Shepard tried to unite the galaxy. Shepard united the galaxy. Revan tried to redeem himself from this conqueror that he once was, from his erased memories. But the other thing that fascinates me about this timeline is the corruption of the Order of the Jedi. Like, really think about it. What gives the Jedi the right to say, "You're not this guy, we're turning you into that"? Like, would it have, like, there could have been several different ways they could have gone about that when they captured Revan, but the whole reprogram his mind like he was some droid and then try to mold him back into their image like he was a weapon to them and not a person. That's like fucked up. Like, that's really effed up. And luckily for them, their plan ultimately failed because Revan became his own person again, not the tool that the Jedi wanted. And I also looked at him here. Okay, if there was an established Anakin Skywalker, he'd be the Anakin Skywalker of the old Republic era. And then Anakin Skywalker would be born thousands of years later. And I really, and how they were also at one point going to bring Revan into the Mortis arc as a vision for the Son to talk to as an advisor to the dark side. I already have a video talking about that. And I would have loved to see Anakin during the Clone Wars and capture a spiritual essence of Revan, Darth Revan, and they duel, which would have been the greatest dream fight I would have paid to see. Maybe Darth Revan and Nihilus would go at it first, but I would have loved to see like an essence of Revan fight Anakin Skywalker, since he feels like when compared to his story, he wants to find out if Anakin truly is like him. Like, that would have been an awesome fight. Like, would it make sense in storyline wise? Probably not, but it would be awesome. Tell me that would not be awesome. So, yeah, and then there's the Exile, and we never got to see what happened to her crew after Knights of the Old Republic 2. They never talk about Knights of the Old Republic 2. They always try to sweep it under the rug, which I can guess for two reasons. One is a real world reason. They don't know how to talk about it because of all that cut content. And the only one they could really get a somewhat clear detail out of was the Exile, Mitria Shurik. But everyone else, they were so cloudy, there was so much cut content they wanted to do, there was so much storylines they wanted to go with, that since it was all cut, it just kind of made this jumbled mess. So they barely got something out of Mitri Surik. Now, the second reason is a storyline-wise they could go with. Why, even under the Legends banner, they don't talk about the Exile. They talk about the let's see, what was her name? Brianna and Atris, who I decree as the massive bitch for a variety of reasons. And Vizamar, I'm pretty sure I pronounced the name wrong. How they say they're the ones that stopped Darth Nihilus, not the Exile. Oh, the Exile? No. She didn't stop Nihilus. She doesn't exist. These three are one of the people that beat him and saved the Jedi Order from the first ever Jedi Purge. That always bugged me a bit. Like, is it because there's a like, when I started thinking about the Jedi Order and the hypocrisy they are in, I started thinking, wait, this is an exiled Jedi who disobeyed the Council, which is a big no-no. So is it possible they erased her from history because they don't want to admit that someone they viewed as a mistake came back and saved their asses? That would make actual sense. They could have explored the storyline with that, but they never did. That would have been a very interesting direction if they went there. That's just my interpretation of why the exile was never brought up again thousands of years later. Instead, they talk about these other characters that, well, to the Republic and the Jedi Order, they don't like to talk about either way. But yeah, the exile was more taboo for them because it's someone they viewed as a mistake. They kicked her out. They viewed her as the reason why all this hell broke loose. Not Nihilus, not Revan. They view her as the problem, and they don't want to admit, yeah, she came back and saved our asses. Um, please don't judge us, because that was somehow is their worst case scenario. So those are my thoughts on a potential Knights of the Old Republic era series slash movie potential ideas. This was Neo Reality Entertainment. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and donate. Stay tuned for more.